Most companies have a GTM strategy, but very few have a GTM that actually gets the money. If your go-to-market feels like a series of broken spreadsheets and missed targets, it's time for a system update. Welcome to GTM, get the money live. I'm Chris Ryan and I'm Lee Parillo, your hosts, and we're here to install the operating system for your revenue. We're moving past the theory and getting into the high-stakes execution of what it takes to scale in 2020 fast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome out to GTM, Get the Money Live. I'm your host, Chris Ryan. If you haven't tuned into the show before, this is all about solving revenue problems for good companies that are looking to grow and looking to help those around them. So revenue for growth, revenue for good. Much different episode than we typically have today. I am very excited. Manny Astruc is in town, we'll call it, in the studio today. So Manny, welcome. Tell us a little about why this is a different show.
Well, I'm a psychiatrist, right? Not a business person. I've got a psychiatric outpatient practice, that's a general practice, which I've been trying to grow. And in addition to that, one of my passions is talking to entrepreneurs about burnout and the various problems that causes in their personal lives and their professional lives.
So as a psychiatrist, what took you to burnout? Is it because you see a fair amount of burnout and it's something you can help with? Or talk to me about the pivot, how you went move.
So in 2008, I hit a bottom with burnout. I had seen it coming for years, but I did what we tend to do, right? I just worked harder and kicked the can down the road. I didn't see very many options for what I was doing. I had a outpatient practice that was 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. I knew it wasn't sustainable, but the tricky thing with burnout is that you stop seeing options. So I just kept going. And in 2008, I hit a rock bottom. The month before that, my twin sister had passed away from brain cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
It was just a moment for me when I was reflecting on, how miserable I was and how she'd lived her last 3 years with a very grim prognosis, but with a big smile on her face, just this wonderful attitude, that something had to change. So I dug myself out of that. And it's been a passion for me to help to alleviate the suffering from burnout in, entrepreneurs and executives.
So, I mean, again, I'm so sorry that happened to your sister. I mean, it's great that you recognize burnout with the rest of your practice at that point. How do you recognize burnout? Because we were talking before the show and you said, hey, you know what? Like most people know they're burned out. Like give me some ideas of what a leader, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a founder would be experiencing that may not be so obvious.
So parts of it are very straightforward, and then there's a part that people get a blind spot to. So the World Health Organization defined burnout as an occupational phenomena that happens when you've got a lot of stress that's not being well managed. And it's got 3 core symptoms. First is mental and physical exhaustion. Second is a sense of bitterness and cynicism. The people that are supposed to light up your life, your customers, your employees, your family, they become a thorn in your side. And people recognize those first 2 pretty readily. The last one is where it gets tricky. You start performing poorly at work. Your work effectiveness goes down. And you actually get a blind spot to that. If I can get into a little bit of the science around that. Yeah. So the stress response in animals is built to take on life-threatening catastrophes, right? You're being chased by a lion. And when you're chased by a lion, your body responds with an adrenaline spike. You get a bunch of adrenaline followed by a cortisol spike. And that system gets you out of danger, or not, but hopefully it does. And then your system clears, right? The cortisol clears and it goes back to the normal baselines. The problem in today's day and age is that you're being chased by a lion all day long, right? The emails, the Slacks, the problems with employees, customer satisfaction. You're constantly putting out fires, so your cortisol level remains elevated above where it's supposed to be for months, decades, right? For a founder, and there's a biological consequence to that. The prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain that's there for analysis, for thinking, for judgment calls, strategy, it actually starts to shrink. And the amygdala, the limbic system, the emotional reactivity centers start to grow. So the part of your brain that's there to evaluate your performance, how are you doing? It's actually offline. There's a blind spot. So people get used to, a version of themselves that's not functioning as well. It's not thinking as clearly. It's punting decisions down the road. Um, and you're not even aware of it. You just settle for this lesser version of yourself.
That's interesting. So obviously there's a revenue impact to decision making, blind spots, everything that's happening. But what is there a health concern? And this is a genuine question. When your backup system, your amygdala, like takes over, are there health concerns for a system that's doing something it's not necessarily designed to do?
Yeah, there's a lot of well documented, health concerns from metabolic, diabetes and things like that to cardiac. There's a toll on the physical health. There's a toll on the mental health. There's a toll on the business. There's a toll on your family. You can't be present for your family in the ways that you have wanted to be. Um, there's reactivity, and there's a huge tax that a founder is paying as a result of the frontal lobes not working.
How do you tell though? Because all of those things ring true, and this is an honest question. I have no idea if I'm burned out because I feel like I'm exhausted, but I also know I have a 2-year-old, and I feel like the cynicism and the bitterness does creep up usually when something bad happens in the firm. But I just I honestly have no idea to just am I pushing through, or is there something else I should recognize, or is it compounded?
Yeah, so I think it's probably compounded. There are seasons where we have to push through. We have a 2-year-old. We've got a product launch that's coming up. There's a new hire. There's a pivot in the workplace. So there are times that we're going to be working harder and we're going to be more tired. But at the point that you're waking up, and you're sort of dreading work,
Mm.
you're no longer excited about it. Your reactivity, your presence at home, your presence in the company, people start to become aware of that. The challenge is recognizing that there's a problem and then actually taking steps for that. And I think in entrepreneurs, we're always looking for an edge, right? So that's why entrepreneurs are constantly working out. Cold plunging. We're always looking for how to keep ourselves performing at the top levels that we're capable of. But if you look at where you are and where you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if there's a gap there, if normal sleep isn't restoring you, then there's a problem. And it's a continuum, right? So you can get to the point that you're literally hitting a breaking point, like something absolutely has to change. That's where I got to. But there's also a danger in the entrepreneur who's burnt out but is still fine, right? Revenue looks good, company's rolling along, but you're delaying on a hire that you should have made. You're delaying a conversation with someone that needs to be fired, right? There's a cost to pushing off these decisions. There's reactive hires, right? You can hire someone reactively to rescue you. These are two sides of that same coin of decision fatigue. Um, there's a strategy call that you should have made, but you don't pivot for 6 months. You don't hire someone like you, Chris. um, what's the cost of hiring you 6 months after they should have, or a year after they should have,
And
right?
that's not procrastination. That is just like those are signs that something is potentially off.
That's a great question. It's definitely procrastination, but if we're looking at the neurobiology, right, it's a frontal cortex that's under load that is not being adequately managed.
I got it. Okay. So is there, again, I apologize for being completely ignorant about the brain, but is there a scan? Like, is there like medical proof that you could just scan and say, you know what, like your amygdala is overworking, it's growing? Like, again, I'm butchering this, but like, is there something that you could identify from a data
No,
perspective?
so I wish that there was,
Okay.
right? I wish that there was a scan or a blood test that we could take for that. The most typical scenario that I see is, founders nod their head when I talk about burnout. Yep, I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out. Like someone whose business isn't aligned. They know that there's a diagnosis and that there's a problem, but then no one does anything about that.
Hmm.
Right? Procrastination, but it's really your frontal cortex can't engage and do the next thing that it needs. So you've just kind of gotten used to this is how it is.
Right. This is just life, and I got to push through
Right.
and go through the adversity. It's funny because we just had a podcast and we were talking about rubbing dirt on it and getting up and just pushing through. And I'm very curious now, if I had this information before that episode, if I would have had a different response.
And for a long time, we haven't had good answers for how to treat burnout. One of the reasons that I've really kicked up my efforts to get the word out is that now there's a technology that allows us to treat the prefrontal cortex, the part that's offline, and to get that back online, recharged, very safely, very effectively.
So there's a technology out now that will help overcome burnout and then get you back to center. Let me ask you a personal question. Was this technology available in 2008 when you overcame burnout?
Um, it was not available at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you tried this technology to level set or anything in the future? If that's too personal, just
No,
say
no, no,
it's too
it's
personal.
fine. Yes, it's interesting. The technology's evolved. It's been around since about 2008.
Okay.
But the standard protocols that were available up until recently involved coming into the office, getting a treatment. You walk in, you walk out, go about your day, and it required 36 sessions over 36 days. So it was pretty intensive. Stanford came up with a protocol where you could get the full benefits in a week.
Really?
And it was a pretty intense week. You were in the office for 6 hours. You would get a 10-minute treatment, 15-minute rest, 10-minute treatment. Um, and that's been very, very effective. We had an entrepreneur who went through that, who was in the fine category. There were areas in his company that he knew he could be pivoting to, but he would just, it's so much work. Everything's fine. Um, and there were other decisions that he had that he was procrastinating on. He went through this accelerated protocol and really caught fire again. It was noticeable to his team. He said at home, he went from coming home and he couldn't wait to go to bed to coming home and like literally wanting to engage. Like, how was your day with his kids, with his wife? Big difference. Um, I did the newest protocol that has just come out. It's a 1-day protocol. And since there wasn't much information, I wanted to see what it was like in terms of, what effect it would have on me and what it was like for somebody else who would go through that protocol. It's a fairly, long day. It's 10 or 12 hours of treatment. And I wasn't having much in the way of burnout symptoms, but my energy levels went up probably 10-15%. My procrastination on things, projects that, I used to have to kind of push myself to do. All of a sudden I was being kind of dragged into them. It was just, something I wanted to take on. Um, so there was a significant difference within a week or two of going through that.
That's interesting. And I think the entrepreneur that went through this program, I just had lunch with him last week. So I know, and it's
Yeah.
funny. It's not funny, but he was telling me a story, a few times previously. I went lunch to him and he's telling me, he's like, you know what? I went out for a run or for a walk and the colors were brighter. And I was just like, oh, all right. Like, I didn't know he went through the therapy, if we're talking about the same person, but
Yeah.
this
Yep.
gentleman did go through the therapy.
And Chris,
Yeah.
he's given permission to
Okay.
talk about him. Yeah, exactly. So there was a work benefit, there was a personal, family benefit, and then going for runs, he said it was amazing. He was always a runner, and he would just grind out the runs, but now the colors were nice, and the breeze felt amazing.
It was coming up in normal conversation. Again, this is
Yeah,
before we even talked
yeah,
about your program, and I just happened to find out. But so it went from 36 weeks, 36 sessions, I think you said,
yeah.
to a week to 1 day. Now with any technology and optimization, because we're all gym rats, we all try to do everything we can to make ourselves better. What else goes along with this type of technology? Because I can't imagine it's a quick fix. Like I come in 1 day, 10 to 12 hours, and burnout's gone. Like, is there a level of reinforcement that goes along with that? Because you're an executive coach as well, correct?
Yeah, so the ideal is you reset the prefrontal cortex, and that happens quickly, and there's very noticeable improvement from that. And then some coaching to go along with that. That's a program that we've developed, Neuropeak Protocol, where the coaching hits on mental fitness, and it's to reset the brain. So uh, endurance, which is the part of the brain that sustains focus, attention throughout the day and the week. Uh, Strength, your ability to remain yourself under pressure. Flexibility, the ability to see options. Burnout gives you tunnel vision. And lastly, the pillar that's probably the least recognized is recovery, active recovery. So scrolling is not recovery. Um, Binge watching a really neat series is not recovery. A glass of wine or two after a hard day's work is not recovery, and it actually will impair what really is recovery. Things like sleep. Sleep is not negotiable when we're trying to protect the brain and keep it functioning at its optimal levels.
So you created this protocol. Let's say again, I'm making this up, but it sounds like you come in for the technology, which I believe is TMS, is what we're
Exactly.
correct. I'm not going to say what that is because I can't say it. But and then you come in and you do a little reinforcement coaching, and then your neural protocol. So when you're training the brain, like, is it is it like when you're training muscles? Can you have a larger capacity for burnout, meaning it takes longer to burn out? Or is it you're training the behaviors to understand and how to handle burnout?
So you can think as TMS as the technology that takes you out, and the mental fitness as what keeps you well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
very much like training then
Yeah.
in the gym world. So I think it's very similar to people that are taking weight loss drugs, right? Like that's great on its own, but if you don't change the behaviors and the outcomes and have the reinforcement of a trainer, then you just don't get the results in the long term. Is that similar, or is there an end date to what you're
So it's a, I mean, it's a decent analogy. The new weight loss medications, though, are so magical that many people don't do the next things they need to.
right?
Right. So it's kind of like the magic pill everyone's been looking for. Let me take something and I can make a change without any effort whatsoever. Um, and the challenge with the Wegovy's and Ozempics of the world is that people shed weight, and this is kind of preaching, right?
Yeah,
they, they shed weight without putting in the work that needs to be done to preserve the body.
right.
So you've got to be taking those kinds of medications while you're working to preserve muscle mass, or you lose the weight, but you end up in trouble in other ways.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's optimizing your life,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs are optimists, optimizers at the end of the day. So I mean, I like the reset with TMS, go through A, B, and C in your program and figure out what's the best way forward. Is there is there an end date though? Like if I go through this program with you, is there constant reinforcement? Do we meet monthly? Like how do you help me translate this to revenue and ROI? Because I get obviously there's a billion ways you could calculate and quantify how effective this is. I've known entrepreneurs that have closed their business for 9 out of the 10 things that you said. So they just didn't see it
Yeah.
or they were just overwhelmed by it. But do you have any insight on that or
So the goal with Neuropeak Protocol is, we reset and then we work on the mental fitness. It's about 12 weeks of coaching. We meet every other week, hitting the pillars, endurance, strength, flexibility, and recovery. And the program is designed to be able to stop at that point. People always have the option of continuing to engage with me if they see a value to continue, but I want to deliver the program in about a 12-week period of time.
That's a pretty good value proposition. I come in, try the technology for one day, then I do 12 weeks, and I'm back, and my business, I don't say is better, but I'm seeing more clearly. I'm understanding. And again, it's hard to see when you're in the storm. It's hard to see through that if you're, again, trying to assess whether you're part of that.
And you've got the blind spot to your own performance, right? But if you think in terms of, the person that you should have let go 6 months ago, $100,000 salary, what's the cost there to your business plus the cost to your team? $50,000 and more. What's the cost of an impulsive hire?
Mm-hmm.
They say 3 to 5x the cost of the salary to make a bad hire. What's the cost of, for a $20 million business? What's the cost of missing a pivot, not making a call that you could have made and putting that off for the next quarter or the quarter after that?
That's where I'm going. Like, what is the opportunity cost? So obviously employees and procrastination and everything else we've been talking about, but the opportunity cost, if you're leading the company and you're running the company and other people, you're responsible for other people and their families at the end of the day. If you're not seeing clearly and your backup system is just engaged, like that is massively scary to me. I mean, trust me, I like the time frame as far as because we're all trying to like use techniques to optimize, whether it's Ozempic or whether it's go to the gym or go on Instagram and buy the latest, 20-year-old that has a gym program that's going to promise all results. So in general, but like if you're suffering from burnout today, and I'm sure most of us are, if you own a business, are there any takeaways? Like say people are like, I'm not really sure about TMS. I want to investigate this a little bit. I'm not sure if I need a 12-week program. Are there any takeaways to manage burnout without your system that somebody could use today?
The things to focus on are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do, right? So, exercise, right? Move more, eat right, connect with others. Lastly, sleep. Sleep is not negotiable, and too many times we're dealing with stress. So remember, burnout is not about the stress; it's about the not successfully managed stress. In today's day and age, people are scrolling, they're binge watching, and they're having a couple of drinks, and that doesn't manage stress.
I don't want to say that sounds like an average night for me, but I will. So, because those things are great too. But I mean, that's good. Like, is it because everybody's tracking their data right now? Everybody, has the aura and all these different. So again, if there's managing, like sleep is a good example of like, some of us, present company included, I feel like I can operate pretty good on 4 hours of sleep. It might be burnout, ladies and gentlemen. So check back in 12 weeks and I'll let you know how that goes. But it's a good takeaway to pay attention to the things you typically don't. So obviously exercise, obviously eat right, obviously make sure that you're sleeping okay. But again, I like the reinforcement. I just keep going back to like I hire a trainer or I go to a specific gym because somebody's telling me what to do because they know more than I do.
Yeah.
And I think in your case, you're the foremost expert of this. And I really like that you developed this framework, system, methodology, and you put it all together. So that's great. So I'll ask how people can find you if they're interested in this in a second, but we always have a mystery question, and we try to be a little tongue-in-cheek. It was a little different with you because it was a little bit harder to come up with a mystery question. Typically, we're solving problems like sales guys and leads and how revenue goes through, but I think this is probably the most impactful to your bottom line and ROI and could save your company if you cured burnout. And honestly, I totally believe that. But that's not the mystery question. I just went off on a tangent. So you've tried TMS, and I'm really curious about this. And I've talked to your team before about doing this. How long does it take to see something different? And what was that thing that you saw? So like you did a 1-day session or 36 weeks, whatever you did. What's the first thing you noticed, and how long did it take?
So I'll tell you what the data says for the 1-day protocol. Weeks 2 to 6 is when people were showing improvement. within the first week of doing TMS, there was a project that I was working on that I had been procrastinating on, and I went to do something else and kick it aside, and I said, no.
You recognize it. Yeah.
I pulled it in front, and I was eager to dig into it.
Did you finish the project?
I finished the project.
All right. All right. So,
Yeah.
so within, you said a week or 2 weeks? I'm sorry.
The first week.
The first week. Okay.
Week. Yeah.
In my head, I do the TMS technology. I'm seeing bluebirds in like 30 minutes. Like I'm excited to see what this happens. Again, we talked to Chris, the entrepreneur we know together, and it's shocking to me that to even think that my backup system is working, and I don't know. It's frustrating, to be honest with you.
It's this blind spot that's just really confounding.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like freaking out about how much money it's probably cost the companies. But in general,
well, I'll tell you, I did some research before. For a $20 million a day company, founder with burnout, $1,000 a day.
$1,000. You quantified this already.
Yeah, $1,000 a day.
I feel like it has to be higher than that. Like honestly, so you quantified this, so you have some data somewhere. So it just feels like what decision are you not making that's costing the company because you just don't know what's happening. So this is great. Okay, so we're solving burnout, ladies and gentlemen. Manny Astruc, Dr. Astruc. Where can people find you if they're interested in learning more about this program, about you?
Yeah, so hit me up on LinkedIn, Manuel Astruc, ManuelAstruc. Yeah, hit me up. Love to have a conversation.
Okay, so they can DM you and you'll be the one to respond?
I'll be the one.
Okay, perfect. So we will put that on screen. Second question, are there other Manuel Astrucs on LinkedIn, just in case?
I have never found one.
Okay, that's good. I'm Chris Ryan. So there's 3 at my bank. So, but okay, that's good. So we'll hit you up on LinkedIn. Is there a website they should go to? Or
Neuropeak Protocol.
How do you spell that?
So Neuro, Neuro, Peak, Peak, Protocol, Protocal. If I spelled that right?
This is a spelling bee. No, all of a sudden, but no, you did a good job. Yeah, so neuropeakprotocol.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And then you serve people internationally, nationally, or people in the region?
Because we can do, coaching internationally, definitely can do that internationally. And, we can do TMS here if people fly in for that, or we can help find a clinic that's close to someone if it's going to be a hardship to get up here.
Okay. That's a good takeaway and a good place to find you. I have to ask a question. One more follow-up question. So I know we're probably over. It's okay, people. Stay tuned for one more minute. You're part of EO?
Yes.
Is this something that EO could bring you in, an entrepreneurs organization? Are they I know they brought you into the regional chapter. Is this something you could travel with and go to other entrepreneurs? Because it feels like that's the perfect audience.
We're working to get out there. Yep,
okay.
We're working to go out and do some keynotes. And within the entrepreneurial circles, EO, we just finished a session with some nurse practitioners, the New York State Nurse Practitioner Association on Saturday. So wherever I can talk about burnout, so it's not just about engaging with me, but with a coaching, but happy to do talks around that. And we're working on for the team of the founders, stress reduction module for teams, a workshop to help successfully manage stress.
All right. Well, there you have it. So I think whoever's in charge of EO in the world, Vern Harnish, pay attention because I don't think we have this yet in EO. And honestly, I don't know anybody that has a clinical approach to burnout. I just think we all experience it at some level. I think the first time we talked about it, I didn't even know you did any of this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I feel like I might be burnt out. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Manny, thank you so much for being on the show. I'd shake your hand, but I'm kind of in this contraption over here. But thank you very much. This has been enlightening, to say the least. Is there any final words you'd like to say?
Sleep is not negotiable. And if you drink before you sleep, your sleep's wrecked.
Okay, so there goes my 4-hour philosophy, ladies and gentlemen.
So you can have a drink here and there. I'm not against having a drink, but if you're really trying to optimize recovery, can't be happening every night.
Drink in the morning, ladies. Just kidding. All right, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of GTM Get the Money Live with Dr. Astruc. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
We go